I'd like to welcome you to this special virtual program in honor of Juneteenth. My name is Susan Gerber-Burning, and I am the Interim Executive Director at the Woodlawn and Pope-Leighey House, a historic site located in Alexandria, Virginia. And we are a site of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and this property has 2 historic homes and a farm on it. One of the homes is the iconic Frank Lloyd Wright Pope-Leighey House, and the other is Woodlawn, which was a former plantation that was owned as part of George Washington's Mount Vernon estate. Its owner, Nellie Custis Lewis, was the step-granddaughter of George Washington, and together with her husband, they enslaved over 90 people between 1805 and 1839. Our site is also home to our partner, the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture, and it's a farm dedicated to creating a more equitable and sustainable local food system in the Washington, D.C. area, and is relevant to our site's history of significant freed Black cultivation, agricultural communities, and equitable farming experimentation. As a historic venue telling the full and truthful history of the site is core to our mission. So we focus especially on the site's Indigenous history through its plantation history and onto the stories and the lives of the enslaved and the important achievements and the lives of the descendants. Especially relevant to this week's Juneteenth activities, we also talk about anti-slavery movements that happened on the site and among the later occupants after 1840, and the history and community of courageous free Blacks and Quakers in the region. You can view our interpretation priorities through a link on our homepage of the website. And one way in which we strive to share these stories is through partnering with historians, descendants, and local artists on relevant programming, which is why we're all here today. Our staff this week is engaged in Juneteenth activities, and we encourage you all to attend one of the many programs across the country that are going on now, and especially in our region. Trinity will include a few links that we've gathered. She'll put that in the chat, and we'll be attending or supporting these organizations this week, especially the Gum Springs Museum celebration this Saturday. And we've been taking tours such as the one our staff took yesterday, the Manumissions tour in Alexandria. So we really encourage you to take a look at these links and jump right in all week long. During this session, please do keep your microphones muted and your cameras off. For best viewing, change your screen to speaker view. That way you can see the slides. You can do this by clicking at the top right of your screen and selecting side-by-side speaker. We will facilitate a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but do use that chat function at any time for your questions or comments. We are so grateful for Voices of Woodlawn for their continued partnership with this historic site and each of the individual people of this group. We thank them for their honesty, perspective, and truths that they bring. And I want to also thank all of you participants today. This is a presentation that will likely draw a variety of emotions, and we ask that you keep all your questions and comments relevant, thoughtful, and courteous of the artists and others at the presentation. I am now honored to introduce the esteemed poets of Voices of Woodlawn: Diane Wilbon Parks, Patrick Washington, Sylvia Diane or Lady Di Beverly, Hiram LaRue, and poet and harmonica player Cliff Bernier. These artists confront the sadness, anger, injustice, and confusion as they give voice to the erased lives of the enslaved at Woodlawn. I encourage you to read the full bios of these accomplished artists. The bios are located at our website. At this time, I'll turn this time over to Voices of Woodlawn for the presentations until 50 minutes after the hour, where we'll take questions.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome one and all. Very, very happy to be here, sharing this space with all of you. We are the Voices of Woodlawn. I am Patrick Washington, and I'm very happy to be sharing space with you today. I'm going to start off with a little background. We're just going to discuss the history and the significance of why we're here. Juneteenth, each June 19th is commemorated by the federal government and here in Maryland as marking the end of the institution of slavery in the United States. This year, it will be held on Saturday, June 19th, or observed on June 19th, which is a Saturday. It is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the US, dating back to 1865. It was on June 19th that the Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with the news that the war had ended and that the enslaved were now free. Note that this was 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation had very little impact on the Texans due to the minimal number of Union troops to enforce the new executive order. However, with the surrender of General Lee in April of 1865 and the arrival of General Granger's regiment, the forces were finally strong enough to influence and to overcome the resistance. The later attempts, as you know, history can do, to explain this 2.5-year delay in the receipt of this important news have yielded multiple versions that have been handed down through the years. Often told is the story of a messenger who was actually murdered on his way to Texas with news of freedom. Another is that news was deliberately withheld by the enslavers to maintain the labor force on the plantations. And still another is that federal troops actually waited for slave owners to reap the benefits of one last cotton
the bag
harvest.
like you have, Maka.
One last cotton harvest before going to Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. All of which, or none of these versions, could be true depending on where you live. I know Maryland had its own reasons for extending. I believe the tobacco crops were very profitable here. So for some, President Lincoln's authority over the rebellious states was in question. Whatever the reasons, conditions in Texas remain status quo well beyond what was statutory. So that's just a little bit of background behind how we observe it. On a personal note, my family observed this holiday on May 20th for as long as I can remember. And so, you know, we never questioned the date. We just knew the significance, we knew the importance, and I'm sure that other families have different dates that they observe on a personal level also. And that is Juneteenth.
To God be the glory. I'm going to take a piece of sunshine and paint it all over my sky. Be no rain, be no rain. I think I'll call it morning from now on. Gil Scott Heron. Welcome, welcome again and again from all of us. Featuring Diane Wilburn Parks, Patrick Washington, Dr. Hiram LaRue, and yours truly, Sylvia Diane Beverly, Lady Di. Also on harmonica, poet Cliff Bernier. We are sharing original poetry written during and since our visit to Woodlawn Plantation Mansion in Alexandria, Virginia. Each of us hope to educate and enlighten hearts and minds. The paintings you have seen are original work from our very own Diane Wilburn Parks. So we want you to relax and just breathe.
This first poem was written as I wandered the grounds of Woodlawn. It's titled Vista Blur. Clouds of branches unsettling were, as smoke became windows or lingering hams, with these thin voices in sad vines when I walked up. Yes, as I began to almost hear their echoes of what was, but is still blurred. What happened here? These voices from long ago that now precious the lawn sweeps across vistas of yearnings, they river my overs. They hide in the corners. Their cries for freedoms are so wanted. With these views of sunrises and mist that hope surely prayed for and gathered about, these views that are gone now, that are just barely and blurred blue, I can almost hear small whispers of accents, sweet as the oaks. Voices that were here when abiding was tobacco and corn, and poorly was riches. Yes, all of my hoops are flung widely across these skins of years. What happened here? Around me and by me and through me, these fork tines of hillsides and shame, cuffs that sob in their rust, or ropes frayed, or gilded mirrors of my memories, me. The full fields of sorrow from those times that are buried so deep down inside me, but have sprouted again. These scars or gasps or flames in souls, their silent prayers, they all come through and are asking me, what happened here? From my long ago that was then, but is still now, again and again, whispered in this evil, holy aftertell.
Thank you so much, Hiram. And I am going to read for you a poem that I wrote while I was visiting Woodlawn. And the title of this poem is Reclamation. I am here to interpret the life of the enslaved. I am here to discover what was and what was not. I am here to carry your voice in my hand, hold it up to the sky, where your voice will open itself, will speak words into mine. From the fields to the bricks, to the compounding metal shovels digging inside my hand, your hands, your stories, without words, without songs, no records, no birth dates, no birthdays, no names, no family history, not one surname, not one house or frame of any of the 91 enslaved people at Woodlawn. There's an ancestor inside me, waving smoke signals, writing unchained words, telling me stories written from rice, from fields, from laboring, from plantations, history planted in fields, then washed by rain, harvested by 4 interpreters. There is a deepening, rising in the voice of old, in the voice of the ancestors, voices leaning up from sleeping bones. The doors are tilted from the other side. Come, I can hear your echoes. Come, I can feel you breathing inside me. Come, I will hold your heavy hands of callus, of mud. I hear the voices of your shadows sliding in between forbidden doors. The latch is removed. Come in. So many ancestors are present in me and my bones. They rattle with your skeletons. We are here to reclaim what history has lost. It is my wish for those 6 chimneys to breathe you out, from the soot of firewall places to reveal your 91 names, where you will glisten in sunlight and become more than an interpretation.
Something came over me. Emotion soar high above cloudy gray skies. Silent tears slide quietly down my face, dabbed with cotton-laced handkerchief. Warrior queen rides bravely, ready to see all my ancestors endured. Entering grounds of plantation, unkept grounds, unpainted shack, greet my entrance. Exquisite mansion with manicured lawns in sight at horizon. Gorgeous crepe myrtle, a splendid fave of mine. Sensational greeting to soothe my soul, ease my mind. Wondering, how would I have responded? Like queen leader I am today? Like Harriet going back and forth to get away? To be strong, to help others, to accept no wrong? Like Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Something came over me. There's still superiority. We must stand strong to remain free. Do not be intimidated. Do not be afraid. Be real. Be true. Share righteous goodness of life. Do what you feel. Accept opportunities. Do not let fear be a factor. Replace fear with faith. Listen, trust, obey. Written in the Underwood Room at Woodlawn Plantation, August 4, 2019.
This poem is entitled First Walk. I'm not being led through these genteel halls. I'm being pushed. Each threshold crossed feels like praise is being forced through fearful throats. The words of our guide ease out with reverence, as if the echo from these walls could actually slap you. And as they deliver their careful sermon, I can't help but wonder, was God ever inside here? The wood smells of elegant care and surfaces so polished that any particles daring to show up would undoubtedly slide off to the floor. After all, we are not here to see dirt, are we? Like a troublesome teen, I stand in places longer than I should, reach for delicate things I know I shouldn't. Nothing happens to me. This tour, though informative, ignored certain queries. Are the brick and mortar walls thick enough to muffle the moans of those outside? Did they ever use the same cross-stitch sewing style from these gorgeous pillows to close the skin of the disobedient? I step out the ravenous front entrance, and after 200 years, the Corinthian marble at the door still looks as if each slab had been carefully laid by angelic hands. One more question, ma'am. Did the masters of Woodlawn ever realize just how close they were to God?
This poem is less about the history of Woodlawn and more about working with these other poets as we experienced Woodlawn. It's titled Bells. Together, we are so wonderfully different, these four bells of us. Each our very own sound, each distinctly tuned to this world of need. In and through our ringing words of witness, our ready bells, eager each to tell the story of stories never told at all. Let your open ears hear the bolding bells that are held up high overhead, clanging hard with concern of anger. And listen as much to our heart-held bells that echo over years and years of questions, full of whys and hows. Then hear and hear again the gonging bells that wake up our history, that call and call and call us to listen right now. Yes, hear these won't be silent ever again, shining, glistening bells. Listen to these voices joined to these voices so full that we almost can't, to these voices so sure that yes, indeed, we always will. Listen to these waiting bells in every one of us. May they ring through us all, just like tomorrow.
Thank you, Hiram. The next poem that I will be reading is entitled Unrest. This poem has been written since having visited Woodlawn. Unrest. Until the red dust expels from Black bodies, the dust blood drifts in from the aging past, from the unmarked graves to the rose-carved, rose-covered graves of then and now. Until the world knows the peace offering of our overgrown anguish that walks all night long in the red rivers of these veins, side by side, one by one, in line like a single protest, like a saturated song repeating over and over and over, from the living, from the dead, from the countless graveside prayers to the marches, the earthly processions, until we collect them all in a parade, a peaceful protest, side by side, bone to bone, flesh to unflesh, breathless, skeletal bones to the breathing, flesh-wrapped bones, perhaps seeing the living and the dead and the ancestral skeletons marching as one. Let's call the dead back to arms. Call the dead back to life. Let them leave purgatory. We will tell them to leave their encased walls, makeshift graves, gather the ghosts and the shadows of the unrest. Bring the ropes and the perforated skins, dig up the demonized years of enslavement and injustice. Bring the dead men, women, and children armies. Bring the graves, the lynchings of the unburied. Maybe then we will complete the misinformed misunderstanding of this continental gap, these gaping wounds, this persistent ache, this grappling hole, this pile of mounting pain that layers the years of racism by death, avoidance, and fear.
Mama, oh mama. Mama, is Master going to sell you from us today? Mama, I surely pray not, because I don't know what me and Christy and Nettie and Jimmy would do, Mama, without you, without the comfort of your touch, the sweetness of your voice. Oh, Mama, we would be so sad, sadder than sad, so sad, Mama, if we didn't have you. Mama, will we ever be able to live our own life together? Just me and my sisters, you and my brother? How come, Mama? How come we can't run about, sing and play and be free? Oh, Mama, 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 what would make a person feel like they're better than another? Make them feel they could treat them any old way. Huh, mama? Talk rude to them? Let their personal space violate their personal space? Disregard and disrespect? We humans too. What on earth did we do to deserve such an absurd, ridiculous way of life? Oh, mama, will things ever change? Written almost 2 years since we visited Woodlawn.
Wow. Okay. Lady Di, you got me. You got me with that one. Thank you for
Patrick,
that.
I got to say something.
Okay,
That
go ahead.
poem that you do about the children giving Master the flowers, that poem inspired this poem so we could hear the voices, just imagining the voices of the children.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank
I
you,
felt
Patrick.
it. I felt that. Yes, yeah, it's important to put ourselves in that position. Okay, so, and with that same spirit, I'll go ahead and reach for the curved mirror piece. It's called The Signal. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How may I be of service? Would you like another man? I learned quickly. Never got hit once. Seen enough overseers erupt their wrath over Negroes who stepped out of place or just stood too tall. Still carry their ash in my pockets to remind me. Shook their fragments out of my hair. I got myself straight. Now, I wear only the best clothes, eat the best food. I've been crowned the most blessed of all the cursed in 2,000 acres. So I stand here, ears and eyes, body with no mouth until addressed. My willingness to please and this posture places me at the head of the table. I got good at counting how many times they lift their cups to drink. They take 4 sips, that's when I step out. If the guest knocks their tea to the floor, I'm gonna make sure my apology swoops into the room before my body ever does. That damn Earl Grey been misbehaving all week, and the teacup might have jumped. I stand in perfect stillness, racing for favor, eyes holding every curve of the butler's mirror, searching for a sign of life. I don't know what it's like to be called a man, but I do know I'm closer than I was yesterday. So, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Let me, please, let me get that for you.
So thank you. We'll turn it over to Susan and the great staff at Woodlawn to facilitate a little bit of discussion. Susan?
Well, thank you, Diane, Lady Di, Patrick, Hiram, and Cliff. Once again, we are really moved and changed by the truth and reality of your words and your masterful poetry and everything that you were conveying. There was so much there. Of course, I'm constantly writing so that I can be inspired longer. But I do want to tell everyone on the call that we did record this, and we'll put this on the website, which when we recorded the last one, I've gone back several times to listen to it, because this is the kind of mastery and talent and message that is so deep that it will continue to make changes, internal changes for you. So we really encourage all of you to go on the website after this session, maybe a week and a half from now, and be able to see this again. So Trinity will post it. These messages cut through the years and layers of and cloaking of the interpretation of this site. And this has also helped us to recenter on the lives of the enslaved and other Black history of the site. I am pleased to announce right now that we will be having a combination series of Voices of Woodlawn Poetry exhibit at Woodlawn, and plein air poet event. This is also for writers and poets. So it's a plein air event that will be in late August. Right now, the date is August 14th. And I think, Trinity, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think we'll be able to ensure that date. And we'll be bringing scores of writers to the site, poets, and other types of writers, to continue to ensure that these voices of the enslaved are received this full reclamation and representation, and are more than, as Diane mentioned in her poem, more than interpretation. So before we go to our last poems, let's go ahead and do some Q&A, and then we will have a couple of additional poems. Right now, we don't have any questions or comments. Understandably, this was quite a moving program, but Trinity, what about if we open up the mics and open up the video, and then to the extent that folks wish to, they can make comment, short questions. Sorry, go ahead, Lady Di.
Yeah, I saw a question in there. Someone asked about, do we have the writings available? And I wanted to say that we hope to have a chat book at some point, but and also I believe we'll have some excerpts of our poetry displayed at the plantation.
We will, and we'll be collaborating with Voices of Woodlawn to do something like a pamphlet, so that you will have a takeaway. Also, we'll have a lot of these on the website, but we'll work together on that as it goes forward. But look forward to being on site at Woodlawn and seeing this majestic moment that will be unfolding. And again, you'll have about a 4 to 5 hour window to be able to come down. Okay. Let's open up the mics and the video, and then folks feel free to give your reactions and your comments. And the best way to view this, why don't we encourage you all to go back up to the View tab. It's in your top right, and click side by side gallery. Wait a minute, is that right, Trinity? Or full screen?
Yes, side-by-side gallery will allow you to see all of the participants with the videos on.
All the screens.
And Susan, I have a question for my fellow poets. I'm just really, really moved by the fact that now 2 years, almost 2 years since we visited Woodlawn, they are still being moved to write about this poet, or about the experience of being at Woodlawn. And I wondered if they could say a little something about that. I know Diane is still painting and writing. Obviously, Lady Di just wrote that incredible piece that she presented. And I believe Patrick has been back a few times before the pandemic to visit and write. So I'm kind of interested in that lingering effect of being at Woodlawn on the poets. Lady Di, any thoughts on that?
Yes, Hiram. It's amazing to me that since visiting Woodlawn, I actually hear messages from the enslaved, my ancestors, and they keep speaking to me, and I don't even have the time with all that's going on to write every message that they're giving me. So I have a lot more than I've written to share and will share. And I believe it's endless messages since I touched foot on the ground, touched my feet there. It was like a welcoming from the ancestors saying, oh my, finally we are realized.
Are there others on this call who have had a similar experience visiting a plantation site or a place of enslavement? Any in the audience?
I just want to say real quickly while somebody is prepping their comments, I just want to say that returning was important to me because number one, it's a beautiful space anyway. It's a wonderful spot to visit. Is just the just the how it overlooks the valley and just just the where it is positioning is a really beautiful spot. So I like to go there and kind of collect my thoughts, and I do listen, and I take them as messages that are coming to me. So I have returned a couple of times, and that was important also because the feelings that I've had have kind of evolved with each visit. But also dealing with these 4 poets has been very encouraging also is for my work because they're giving me things that are inspiring future pieces, each one of them. So I'm enjoying being fed creatively by them as we move on. I just want to say that.
Well, I will add to that conversation. Something, and just to take the line of Lady Di's poem, something did come over us visiting Woodlawn. And I would agree with some of the folks in the chat in the Zoom room. Going to a plantation, I'm from Georgia. I'm from the South. I pass cotton fields all the time. But I've never just really been open to visiting a plantation. This was really my first visit. And I will tell you that it felt like a tug, a pull, just even driving in. It felt like desperation pulling at us. And I am and continue to be inspired by that moment as I wrote the poem this morning, not just this morning, but the one that I read this morning. The second poem was after having visited Woodlawn. And obviously, the paintings have come after visiting Woodlawn. So the doors that were open that day certainly have not closed. So I'm grateful for it. It was very difficult to do. It was not easy to walk or drive to the plantation and to walk into the estate. It was a very difficult process, but I feel that we have a responsibility as poets to really give voice to the voiceless.
So there is one question here. Let me go ahead and read that. From the messages, the ancestors channel through you, and I'll say through all of you, that pulling that you described, Diane. I wonder who else has been feeling this, but This question is about what is it that they desire to say? Is it their personal stories, morality concerns, advice, and I'll add connection to you, or a different consensus of messages entirely? And then coupled with that is, do you feel comforted by the presence of these ancestors, or are there a cacophony of emotions that you now share with them as you convey their experiences with you?
Yeah, it's both the connection and the cacophony of emotions. I think more importantly, I think that these are haunting, not so much to the extent that I'm afraid to write or to approach, in the way that is almost horrifying, that their experiences, as I'm interpreting them and as I'm open to listening to the ancestors, I think that it has given me a landing to fall on. I've been avoiding this for so many years after leaving Georgia and going into the United States Air Force. I went to England, and it's almost as if these injustices in Georgia never happened to me. But when we drove in, I was actually in front of Lady Di as we were driving in to Woodlawn. And going into this room, I cannot tell you, and just being present inside of the estate there, you can feel presence. I mean, if you're open to writing, you can feel it. And I would just say that all of the above, everything that has happened to this moment has encouraged me to not put away or sweep under, but to be bold in my representation of what I'm hearing.
Other comments to that same question?
I feel that we were very brave. I prayed my way to accept the invitation. I didn't readily feel that I could handle it, but I'm so happy that I did. And I feel that we were chosen poets to be the ones to share the words. And the feelings from our ancestors, they have different messages, as you heard in our poetry. A lot is just all is our imagination of what they are saying to us, but also just that we can feel what they would want us to do and want us. And the whole experience, the number one thing for me, it has strengthened me even more. I feel like I'm a strong person, but I'm even stronger because of what they endured, and their spirit has strengthened me.
Lady Di, earlier in your poem, you talked about standing strong, remaining free, be real, be truth, do not be intimidated. And that this kind of, in your poem about Mama. So it's interesting that Diane kind of said the same thing as well. So that reiteration must be part of the evolution of you all coming back to Woodlawn and these many feelings that you had as you began, and then coming to this point. Again, just to reiterate to everyone on this call, these poets are invited at any time to Woodlawn. Again, they're core to what we do there at Woodlawn. And so they have access to the mansion and the former plantation, but we also encourage other writers, singers, dancers, crayonists to come to Woodlawn, get in contact with us. And we would love to offer space for you to also in the safety of this kind of platform that Voices of Woodlawn has begun to create a good foundation for others to flow through that as well, and to feel free to reach out either to Voices of Woodlawn on how to get connected to do this at Woodlawn, or to reach out to us. So many comments about it being touching, moving. One woman says that she's from the Caribbean. We share a very similar history of slavery. Thank you for sharing your history. It was very touching. Another person says, I am mixed blood from, sorry to say, Tesequi, Pueblo, and I often feel my ancestors and the conflicted spirits that still exist in and around Santa Fe. I also feel the blessings they share with me. I deeply feel the words and music and art that you are sharing. Those of you, the poets and Cliff, is there any comment that you have to those two comments?
I would just reiterate that this program, we are honored to present it, and we're so grateful to the staff at Woodlawn for hosting the writing experience along with the interloop, and then providing this platform for us to present. We are available to present the program to any and all. We do it out of the goodness of our hearts, so to speak, and the passions of our souls and spirits. So if anyone from any other part of the country, which clearly this program is relevant to, would like for us to share the program with you, just be in touch. You can do that by going to the Woodlawn site or by emailing us at voicesofwoodlawn@gmail.com. The timing of this program also, I think, is incredibly powerful with all that's going on in our country, much of which is rooted in the history of slavery. I think that the program is pretty darn relevant to us today, not only to look back, but to also see how it is impacting us this very day, this very hour of this very day. So again, thank you, Susan, and your team, Trinity, Christelle, and others at Woodlawn for hosting us. Really appreciate that.
Of course. Any other comments or thoughts about these last comments and the feelings about ancestors and descendants?
I would just say that the music that spoke to me from these experiences were the spirituals and the blues, and that's what I tried to play to accompany it. And those are emotions that go across culture. So I think it's appropriate no matter where you're from.
Cliff, that leads us right into the next, that's a good segue into the next moment here in our session. So what I'll do is ask you and Diane in particular this question, and then we'll go to the last two poems. So for Cliff first, the music of the blues, and there's a deep history, jazz, swing, blues, that those types of music carry Black history with it. Can you speak a little bit to that and how your knowledge of music actually helped you to interpret this history? And then followed by Diane, if you could speak a little bit about the company of your artwork and how you exhibit and how you come to your pieces. We're seeing them and enjoying them, but not necessarily focused on them. So let's take one moment after Cliff.
So the blues grew out of the music of West Africa, and specifically that call and response pattern. And that's what you hear in old field recordings and of slaves working in the fields, picking cotton and so on. And it's the music of the plantation, and it grew and evolved, but the roots are in Africa and in the plantation life. Spirituals as well in the church, in the yearnings of the people for a better life and for freedom, grew out of the churches in the plantation, well, the gatherings in the plantation, like where they could worship and commune. So it's to me the history of plantations and the enslaved is the expression in art that they had, which was largely through music.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you. Good context there. Diane? And then we'll go to the poems.
Well, I could say this. For me, the art really is an expression in so many ways. I mean, I think that even if we're, we may not be culturally the same, okay? We may not share the same background. The one thing that art conveys is that something is being displayed and exhibited in a way that words cannot say. So in this, I'm just going to take the image that we always send, and this is called royalty. And the way that I viewed the enslaved at Woodlawn is pretty much themed to Patrick's poem, Did They Know How Close They Were to God or to Royalty? So when I think about my ancestors on the fields and in the fields, I think of them being royalty, that even though you may not see their headgear, it's there. And though we have come from Africa and from our country, or from the root of our history, we didn't lose anything. And as you can see, we're a very strong and vibrant people. So even this portrait and this image of what I saw there, believe it or not, if you look in the room, there's a portrait, and I believe is of Lawrence and Nellie. I may be wrong, but there, if you see me in the cursor here, this is the butler. And this guy resembles the butler. The butler was just, you couldn't even really tell because he looks like the curtains. He was colored in like the curtains. And so I wanted to put him here in this imagery, in this painting, because it was necessary to have him as part of, he's in the background, but he's also very significant because he looks different, doesn't he? He looks really different from the rest of the images here. So, at some point I will be able to have a more extended conversation. But yes, everything touched me to the extent of all of the art that you're seeing today. And it continues to touch me in a way that is both in words and in paint.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, both of you. And let's go to the last two poems. And we thank everyone for attending today. Please do be in touch with both Voices of Woodlawn and Woodlawn.
Am I next, Hiram?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. How would you feel? A feeling comes over me uncontrollably. I wonder how one race could feel superior to another. A horrible feeling, wondering, how would you feel if you or your loved ones were whipped or hung? How would you feel if your babies were sold to someone else, taken from you in middle of night, and you didn't know who or where? Lord have mercy, never to see your child again. Tell me, how would you feel if you had to stand by in silence while your wife was violated, raped, and abused? How would you feel if you could never pick enough bales of cotton in scorching hot sun? How would you feel if you could never pick up a book or not allowed to learn to read or allowed to learn anything. Tell me, think about it. How would you feel? How would you feel if you had to walk around in rags all day, day in, day out, no shoes on feet, no food to eat? I want to know. Tell me, how would you feel? How would you feel if you had to enter through back door or not at all? Eat in kitchen or not at all? My heart and soul says, let it be told, it would not feel good to you.
Well, if we have enough time for another poem, Lady Di, I love that poem. You know I do, because it really resonates with all of us if we just put ourselves in someone else's place. I have a very short poem, or we can just let it be with this wonderful poem that we stay with.
Please go ahead.
Okay, and this one is short. It's entitled Anesthesia. Take the edge off, count backwards, light swallowed eyes, strand them in, hold the sugar canes at his chest, take the fields and eat them whole, taste the bitter root of strong buttercups, sift the sun's body through the broken souls gathered church hymns, sticking out of slaves' soulless shoe, open the deep dark wound, douse it with alcohol, scrape it bald, blood bleeding, stop the bleeding with fresh pulled cotton, lost him, lost them, bled out, stayed too long under anesthesia.
Oh my goodness. We're going to close, everyone. So if the Voices of Woodlawn would stay on, but the rest of you all have a wonderful afternoon. And to close with one comment from Luther Jett, thank you for your powerful work. Take care all.